Hello, welcome back everybody to 8 Bits. I'm your host Brandon Minnick, and with me is normally my co-host Chloe Condon. But
I don't know what you're talking about. It's me. I'm Chloe, everybody. I love Clippy, and I like theater, and I like being a really good developer advocate. Ta-da!
That's right. Now with us today we have a guest co-host filling in for Chloe. PJ Metz, welcome back to the show.
I'm excited. This is not even my first time getting to help co-host. I've done this before, and I've been on the show, and I mean, it's just exciting that I get to keep hanging out with you in all these different ways, especially in something as official as 8-Bits TV. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah, and for anybody out of the loop, we have a website now, 8bits.tv. That's where you can go check out all of the previous episodes. And like PJ was saying, he's been a guest a couple times, and he's even been a co-host a couple times. So you can go back and check out all of the 8-Bits episodes. Yeah, the Chloe wig.
It is hard, man.
You look great.
I mean, I gotta tell you, I feel like a new man. It's because I am dressing with a woman's wig, and so it's very in my eyes. I have to abandon this bit. I'm sorry. I have to get this out of here. Oh man.
So for folks who maybe haven't met PJ, maybe they're still catching up on the previous podcast of 8-Bits. PJ, tell us a little about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm PJ Metz. I'm currently looking for my first opportunity inside of tech as a developer advocate or a technical writer or a junior developer. I was a teacher for 11 years and I recently stopped working as a teacher to devote myself 100% full-time to finding a job in tech. And I'm very excited to be meeting lots of great people and companies and talking to lots of great developer advocates all around companies like Stripe, GitLab, like Launch Darkly, companies like, oh my gosh, there's really like a ton of them. I'm Cisco, Comundo. I'm talking about all these great companies that are all interested in me. And so it makes me feel just like the prettiest girl at the dance that anyone's even interested in talking to me at all. But I've got a great background in writing. I've got a great background in streaming because I stream with you, Brandon, on Sundays, and I stream with Chloe, who's normally here on Thursdays. And I'm just excited to put myself out there and really get into tech. So that's what I've been doing over the past few weeks.
Love it. Absolutely. And where can folks find you? Where are you streaming?
So I'm streaming at twitch.tv/MetzandAround. You can follow me on Twitter right here. I got lucky enough that Metzandaround was not branded already, so I snatched it all up. Metzandaround.com has links to all my socials as well as projects I've done and talks that I've given. I gave a talk at a Microsoft conference last year called Confusion is the Sweat of Learning. All that's available at Metzandaround.com. And if you find me on Twitter and send me a DM, I'll talk with you there too about literally anything. Video games or 80s music or Hawaiian shirts or tech, whatever. I'm just excited to talk to people. So find me, hit me up, and I'd love to meet lots of people.
Love it. So, so you've obviously been very busy, looking for new jobs. What fun tech stuff have you been working on this week?
Well, this week I've been trying to get my Twitter bots that Chloe and I do that are based on 90s pop singers. We've got one for Mariah Carey, one for Shania Twain, and we've got one for Ariana Grande. Which she's not 90s, but she was born in the 90s, so we count it. Right now, I'm trying to add a new type of bot. Normally, what our bots do is they respond to users, and they will respond back when you say sort of a secret word that activates them. Well, this InSync one that we're building, we're trying to get it to respond with a video every Friday and a GIF as a reply instead of just text. And this is much harder. I actually reached out to a bunch of people, including Andy Piper, who works at Twitter, and he helped me figure out an easy way to try and get it going. So right now I've been spending a couple hours over the past few days trying to get this bot to tweet a video, and I've tried a couple different methods, but I think I got it. And I think
Wow,
hopefully tomorrow I'm going to be able to make it live and it's going to work and we're going to be tweeting some videos with this bot account. I'm very excited.
that's incredible. And so I am sharing all the links to the bots in the
That's
comments
right.
here. What's the name of the Ariana Grande bot?
It's Botiana Grande, Botiina. And all of those
Good.
actually, so Botiana and Mechanical Carry were both suggested by Brendan O'Leary, who's a DevRel at GitLab. He was in our chat, and he suggested both of those names. So I can't take credit for the great names. That's Brendan O'Leary's helpful contribution to our streams.
Amazing. Shout out to Brendan. And what are you using to make the bot? That's all in Azure, is that right?
Well, originally we had Shania Bot in Azure as a, I think they're called logic functions, right?
Logic apps, yeah.
Yeah,
Azure
logic apps. So we had an Azure Logic app where every day she would tweet at the same time, "Let's go girls, let's go girls," and I realized that Chloe showed me that way, and it was really easy and effective. But we ended up moving away, and now we've got it completely in Node.js. And I have a secret. It was actually running in Heroku for a while, but I turned off the Heroku, and right now it's running on the cloud on Linode, which is a cloud provider. And
Cool.
I've got it fully running on a VM machine from them. So I've tried a couple different places to host this code because I'm interested in learning a lot of different things. I'm trying to find a bunch of different ways that I can do these projects. It's pretty exciting.
Love it. And just noticed a friend of the show, Matt Hamilton, is
Yeah, Matt
here hanging out with
Hamilton.
us today. We actually met Matt together when we were on your stream on Metzing Around.
That's right.
Gosh, what feels like a year ago.
Honestly, it might have been November at least.
But Matt, good to see you again. And yeah, if anybody else wants to join us live, we do live stream at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. So anybody catching up on the podcast, feel free to join us and hang out in the comments section. But we do have an amazing guest today who has so much to share with us. So I do want to jump right into that. So let's welcome to the show, Jens.
Jens,
Hey, Brandon. Hey, PJ.
Welcome to the
welcome.
show.
Yeah.
Jens.
Thanks
Jens
for
and I-
having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jens and I actually, we've known each other for a while now. We met through the Xamarin world, but we've been chatting the last couple days and learning about Jens and his background and his history, and it's fascinating. So had to bring him on. But Jens, for those of you, for the folks who are watching who haven't gotten a chance to meet yet, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, Jens, 46 years, just had my birthday. I live in Denmark.
Happy birthday.
Actually, it's not just Denmark. I live in the city of Billund, which is also known as the Lego city because the Lego World HQ is in the city. So you can imagine this is not a safe city to walk around barefoot in. So yeah, I've as we spoke about, I've been within tech 20 plus years, a good deal of them within the financial world, capital markets. And yeah, I thought it could be nice to have a chat to you guys and share a little bit about my journey and also get some perspective on how you guys see the tech world.
Absolutely. And so one of the things we love learning about on the show is everybody's origin stories, or as Chloe likes to call it, your Marvel origin story. And yours, and we all start at different points, right? Like PJ mentioned, PJ is learning to code now. I got into it in college, but Jens, you said you started way earlier than that. What was your first journey into code?
Yeah, so zoom back to 1981. I was 6 years old at that time. My brother, who's 6 years older than me, he brought home a ZX Spectrum with 16 kilobytes of memory. And I was just drawn into that machine straight away. I learned my first programming language on that thing. It was BASIC. And it just gave this intuition and understanding of how computers are wired, how processors work, what goes on down on the various circuit boards at a very early age. A little bit like kids today. You see a 3-year-old toddler wielding an iPad in a way that I would never be able to. It's like swipe, 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 and then they've done a lot of stuff already, right? So it was this very early introduction to technology, and from very early on learning to use technology as a tool, and not something to where you had to study hard and read a lot of books, etc. But just go at it and use it, play with it, right? So that was my first encounter, and then very quickly my parents, they got a PC in the house, and before I knew it, I was on to Turbo Pascal. Shout out to Anders Jarlsberg. I know he's still at Microsoft. He's also the father of C# and TypeScript, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, and obviously Bjarne Stroustrup. Without him, I would have never learned C++, which was also just a thing you naturally had to do. Yeah, and then slowly entered sort of the era where I started getting paid for what I was doing, and had my first real Microsoft encounter in the mid-90s. Did an MCP, Microsoft Certified Professional Program, did the Microsoft Certified Solution Developer. I think it was on VB, Advanced VB, and SQL Server. It was a lot of COM development and stuff like that.
Scary stuff back in the day.
Yeah, and then, but again, then there's been a lot of transitions throughout my career. There was one phase where it was all about VB. Then I had a phase where we were writing add-ins for Microsoft Excel, and that was back to your C compiler. Then we had some enterprise integrations within a bank where we had to integrate a trading system with a pricing environment. So we actually used SOAP and web services to do that. Amazing technology back then. So it was really groundbreaking. Now, there's XML everywhere, as Brian showed us last week. So we don't really think about that so much more. Then I had a long period where I was not actually coding anymore. I was more in a kind of consultancy sales mode with actually a San Francisco-based technology company. It was based on Java, so that was kind of a different story. But anyway, so that was more or less 10 years where I didn't really program that much. I did a little bit of Python, did a little bit of Scratch and LabVIEW. My kids, they got into, I don't know if you're aware of these, but Lego, they have these wonderful robots. This is the newest version, the Spike Prime, it's called. But we also did some programming on the predecessor, the Lego Mindstorms, NXT and EV3. So again, these are just, if you want to teach your kids to code, this is such a great starting point. You have kind of your main computer here. You've got your inputs, your outputs. You've got your servos. You've got some sensors. There's some light sensors here that you can use if you're doing line following, things like that. And then there are so many different programming tools that you can use to program these things. You can use Scratch from MIT, if you're familiar with that. There's even a plugin for Visual Code, which can generate code for this puppy. And you basically just connect over Bluetooth, you transfer the program, and it just runs. And it's really an excellent way to teach kids to program.
I got to get one of those and have it fight my Roomba.
Actually, a couple of fathers here from Lego City, we have actually spoken about at some point doing kind of a robo battle kind of thing. Yes. that could be
Cool.
awesome.
Absolutely.
But maybe we have to switch to Metal and Arduino and these kinds of things and do really nasty bots. Yeah. So
Wow.
no. Fast forward, end of 2019, I left my job at this software company to start my own. So, which is also a company I have today. It's an advisory or consultancy company. We do advisory for banks, exchanges, financial institutions, private equity, you name it. But then obviously we've all experienced the laughs and joys of this global pandemic, which maybe freed up a little bit of calendar time, if I can put it that way. So anyways, I'm very bad at sitting down and just doing nothing. So I've been working on this idea for some time now, and I thought, well, now's the time to try it out. So basically, I've built this app, which is a FinTech app. It's a tool for private investors. I'm not going to say much more about the functionalities because we are still 1, maybe 2 months away from the actual go live. So better keep the cards tight. But this is how I met Brandon, because I'd had this pause in programming for a fair amount of time, and I said, okay, I need to find myself a technology platform to do this. And when you fire up your Mac, you've got your Xcode and Swift and what have you, and if you want to do Android, Java, blah 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 blah, because I didn't want to maintain 2 different code bases and all that. And I came across Xamarin. And the thing about Xamarin, and actually the new .NET, as I call it, because a lot has happened in the .NET space since I last touched it back in, let's say, the early 10s. One thing that struck me, where I used to have to write thousands of lines of code to manage threads, memory, I/O, all this stuff. Now I just have to follow Brandon's async await best practice, and I'm good to go. Right?
That's right.
No, but seriously, there's so much of this housekeeping that we used to do as programmers, which is not now just taken care of by the operating system and the execution core and all that. So you don't really your abstraction layer is suddenly at a different level, which is obviously saves you a lot of development time. The downside, especially for a guy who's slowly losing his hair, is obviously I'm used to when I'm getting a runtime error of some sorts. I want to know exactly what caused it, what bit was wrong in what register, blah 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 blah. That's not possible anymore. The debugger gives me the debugger gives me so much information, but it doesn't give me all the low level details. And it actually took me a while to realize that I don't really need that information, because at the end of the day, it's typically because I did a nasty fire and a forget on a threaded task or something, and some exception came back which you didn't catch, and then all the dominoes, they fall over, right? So yeah, no, but and again, the interaction I've had with you, Brandon, it's been amazing. So first of all, huge shout out to your GitTrends app, because the way you've structured that app, I'm not talking about the UI design and all that, but how you have structured your code behind, and how you've done your housekeeping with these container objects, etc., etc. It just makes so much sense, and I didn't have to invent that strain of thought, right? So huge shout out for that. And again, and if there are any aspiring app developers out there, I mean, the first stop is go to GitHub, check out the GitTrends app, because you can really learn a lot from reading Brandon's code.
That's right.
Thank you, Jens. And I promise we didn't pay Jens to say any of that. Very much appreciate the kind words, though. So, and yeah, for anybody who is interested in getting into Xamarin development or wants to check out a fully featured app, GitTrends is totally open source. It's in the app stores, and even if you're not looking to get into mobile development, if you manage a bunch of open source repos, check out GitTrends. You can download it for free on iOS and Android. Like I said, it's also totally open source, and it helps you monitor how many views, clones, stars, all the activity you're getting on your repos, so that if one starts trending, so for example, if we have everybody visiting a certain GitHub repo today, then GitTrends would send you a push notification to let you know that we had a spike in activity. So do check it out. I appreciate very much the kind words, Jens. But I want to jump way back because you mentioned a lot. Just it was a heck of an intro. But you talked about getting into programming at an early age, and that's something that I can't agree with more. I really think that everybody should be introduced to it, and probably in elementary school and grade school. And I love that you're doing that and helping with that, especially with the Lego robotics. But what I'm curious about is PJ, as somebody who is now just getting into code, what are your thoughts on that? And I'm curious how maybe that would have helped you or hurt you if 20, 30 years ago you had gotten into it.
Man. So I have a very, very light experience with code when I was younger. In the 6th grade, my parents sent me to hang out with my cousin for 2 weeks because he was going to a computer camp. And they thought, well, maybe that'll be good for PJ too. So I learned BASIC, and he was in the, I want to say C+ class or C class. But we just sat in a computer lab at, I think it was Duke University campus. So they had this computer lab. We got to hang out there and just type code. But I wasn't excited by BASIC at the time. I was excited because after lunch we got an hour and a half to play video games, and I would always grab StarCraft and go and play StarCraft for an hour. But I remember this idea of, well, I follow the instructions, I put this on the screen, and the ball bounces, and I can change how many times it bounces, or I can generate a house with shapes I've generated on screen. And seeing that I could create something, if there had been a program at my school that I could have continued that at, I think it would have done a lot for my creative thought and for my ability to problem solve, because that's what coding is what's wrong, where's the issue, how do you fix it? Even simple stuff. If you mess up, your first hello world and it doesn't print, you get an error, you can figure out what went wrong, and that process builds resilience, it builds creativity, and it builds critical thinking. And if we could have that as a core class, we think that science is a core need, that every student needs to know how science works. We think math and English and history, we see these as core classes in America. Why wouldn't computer programming as part of a critical thinking course be something that's important for these kids to have? I think it's really important. It would have changed the trajectory of my life immensely. And even if I didn't end up getting into computers, I would have had this great background in problem solving. That would have helped me in whatever field I went into.
Well said. I couldn't agree more.
I do agree, but I would like to take it a step further, because I actually believe that programming should be a course or a subject that is, on the same level as math, science, etc., because it's such a useful tool. Just like math. Math is just a useful tool, nothing more. Mm-hmm. So is programming, and it's getting more and more and more important. Again, I think if you look 20 years ahead, so many job descriptions will involve some kind of maybe not a low-level Xamarin coding, but yeah, you get the drift, right? It's just as important as being able to wield a hammer.
Yep.
So And while we are at that subject, I also think it's very important to see technology as a whole as a toolkit. And just because you learn basic or you learn C, then that particular tool is not necessarily the best tool for everything, right? This is typically a discussion I have with Java developers, but that's a different story. But teaching the kids to use technology as a tool to help them solve a real world problem.
Right. Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter what kind of programming language or technology stack or whatever, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter whether, in principle, whether you are coding C or C# or Java or whatever. They're all just different abstractions of more or less the same toolbox, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah, and I've also found, for me, it just helps me understand how things work. And so, like, when things don't work, then I kind of, well, specifically speaking to software, but this also applies to things like if you work on cars, you understand how an engine works and your car starts making noise. Same idea, like when you're on a website and it freezes, if you understand how everything works together, then you can kind of start thinking about like, oh, well, it was probably this, like maybe hitting this button that triggered a database lookup and that probably failed. So to get around this, if I can just avoid hitting the database, and you can kind of start figuring out your way through, we'll say, the software world, which I find incredibly helpful. And I see things when I'm talking to friends who maybe don't have that programming background, where they'll say something like, like this app's broken, like every time I launch it and it doesn't work. And it's like, oh, well, have you tried just clicking this button first instead? And then kind of seeing that light bulb for them, like, oh, there's ways to get things to work, even if it's not the first thing you tried.
Yeah.
And couple that with just they're learning a basic understanding of networking and maybe how like packets work and IP addresses. That'll also just help you like debug your Wi-Fi. Like when the Wi-Fi goes out.
Yeah.
Is it the DNS? Is it the router? Is it the gateway?
It's always the DNS.
But if you take it a step back, it can also be, in my view, a very helpful learning tool. So I've worked a good deal of my career within finance and capital markets, and a good deal of those years doing what is referred to as quantitative research, which is another way of saying you are implementing mathematical models as computer software, right? And then you're analyzing data, yada yada. So and I've always found that if you are researching a new model or you need to understand a new model, the best way to get the intuition for it is actually to say, okay, let's sit down and program it.
Yep.
Because if you can program it, you understood it, right? So and it may sound like a chicken or the egg kind of contradiction, but it's actually true when you're assimilating new knowledge, whether it's mathematical models in finance or guidance systems for rockets or line finding algorithms for a Lego robot. It doesn't matter. If you don't understand the model of what is it in the real world that you are now trying to put into a piece of software, right? When you get that abstraction, it's so much easier to learn and understand fairly difficult topics. So that's always been my mantra. If there's something you don't understand, try and code it, because it will force you to learn it, right?
That idea of coming up with a solution, it creates the pathway in your brain, and then you can use that pathway to further and deepen that learning later on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. And Speaking of which, you do a lot of work, Jens, with Lego Robotics and the Lego League. I wanted to also jump into that a bit because that is being taught, or rather, you are teaching children to code through Legos. Is that?
So I mean, I'm not acting as the teacher for an entire class. I've got 3 boys at home, and they are every year they are competing in this first Lego League tournament, which is an amazing STEM competition. Consists of there's a robotics competition where there's a robotics board where they have to solve all kinds of missions using a robot such as this. And then there's typically a project as well, an innovation project where they have to come up with a solution to a problem within, every year they have a new theme for these competitions. I think last year it was something about how to make people move more, because people have a tendency to sit at home on their couches with their iPads and being physically inactive. So how can we get kids out or even adults out and move more? And these kids, they came up with the most wonderful ideas, everything from virtual treasure hunts. I think there was one team who did like a staircase where it was at a train station, and I think there was an escalator, and all the passengers, they were just riding the escalator. They didn't take the stairs, even though it would be better for them physically to do that, right? So they had this idea of installing huge piano keys on the stairs. So when you walk down the stairs, you were playing the notes of the steps, right? Which obviously made people choose going up and down the stairs rather than taking the escalator. So, and again, it's an amazing competition. I know it's in the US as well. So, for your kids, for your schools, do a shout out, because it's really a competition that challenges them on a lot of different areas. So obviously they have to design the physical robot, they have to program it. Yeah. The next thing is they have to practice, because sometimes real world situations are very difficult to handle in code. Right. Maybe the room, the lighting in the competition room was a little bit different than when they practiced at home, or tons of different things can go wrong. But it just teaches these kids to go into problem solving. Where I wanted to go at. So I've been supporting my own kids and their teams, as best as I can. And obviously it rubs off as well, because when you are very easy to excite about technology, then if someone slips this under your door, you start tinkering. So it's
that's right.
Yeah. And so we have the link. We shared the link to firstlegoleague.org.
Yeah,
is that
check it
where
out.
Folks listening along can go to find out more?
Yeah, so that's the main site, the global main site. Then there's typically a lot of regional centers where they organize regional competitions. But I believe they have yearly the finals, the world finals. I think they are in Orlando, or at least they were a couple of years back. So, but it's an amazing thing, and yeah, I mean. It's not like my kids are, they did, they won some design prizes and things like that, but they haven't gone all the way yet, but who knows?
Very cool. Come through and maybe your kids can compete with Jens' kids and some friendly competition there.
Who knows?
Right. I'm so
building
jealous.
A whole robot.
Right. I played with Legos a lot growing up, but they didn't move. They weren't robotic.
Yeah, I had to do it myself. I had to go and tell my mom it was an X-Wing, and she was like, sure, honey, whatever.
Yeah. So I'm currently in my office, but I'm collecting especially the space-themed Legos. So obviously the Saturn V, the new shuttle that just come out.
Isn't that the really big one? That's like the space shuttle. It's like this.
Yeah, it's I believe it's Discovery, the Discovery shuttle. But unfortunately, it's without the side boosters and the main fuel tank, so it's just the shuttle itself. But
you just got to get a lot of orange bricks and make it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So,
man, building a robot and programming it to do certain things, I am 100% confident that my mechanical engineer friends in college in 2007, that was a senior year project they had to do. And we got, elementary school kids doing it now.
Yeah. No, as I just did this session for, my youngest, he's in primary 3. And they had a unit on internet and internet media and all that. And they have these, they invite parents in to, do a talk. So what I did was I did a demo app in Xamarin. You can get it off GitHub if you want. The Magic 8-Ball app, right?
Yeah.
So, but the amazing thing was, the kids, they totally got the concept. So you push the magic 8-ball, and some random text comes out. You can ask it something, and you get a random response, right? But what really surprised me there was these kids. They totally got it. I mean, they were not able to, analyze all the code and all the XAML and all that. But hey, we had a chat about the string of arrays that had all the questions and answers and all that, and they got it. And the interesting thing was, not even did they get that, but it fairly quickly led to a discussion about privacy and security, because we had a discussion about, okay, if I'm an app developer, I'm building this app, I can get all this information about you from your device. Mm-hmm. No questions asked, or mostly. No Apple might differ, but yeah. But anyways, and these kids, they just said they got it, and again, this is the iPad generation. I think before they got a pacifier, they got an iPad, right?
So, these kids are front end users. They're they're end users now.
Yeah, but they had the intuition. They understood completely. So my Apple ID is actually available, or my location, or information that is sent back and forth between my iPad and some server on the internet. If nothing else, maybe I planted a seed, and a couple of them will grow up with tinfoil hats. I don't know.
It's not a bad thing to be aware of, though.
Right.
I love everything that Apple's been doing lately, especially with their privacy push, where in iOS 14.5, which should be coming out soon. As a mobile app developer myself, I'm privy to all the developer betas, and they're on something like beta 8 or beta 9 of iOS 14.5, so should be out soon. But in that, they will implement, I forget exactly what they call it, but I think it's like app tracking transparency, I think it is, where, there's been this whole, I guess you would call it a market, where every app that you use, both on mobile, and this is true on web as well, they'll track you as you use different apps, and then they'll find out information from those apps so that they can basically give you better ads. And one of the biggest we'll say employers of this is Facebook. And so that's how, folks like to joke around. They're like, the Facebook app's listening to you. It's recording what you say. That's how it knows that I need a new coffee maker. It's not.
It's looking at your other apps,
But it knows you so well that, it's seen you using other apps. It sees you looking up maybe Amazon.com, looking up different coffee makers or reviews, and then it knows, this person's in the market. And and iOS has been making a big push lately. So 14.5, grab it as soon as it comes out, update your phones to it, because you'll have better protection. You can obviously allow an app to continue to track you if you want to. I don't personally want to, but and then Apple's also added to every app, or forced, rather, better way to say that is forced us developers to add to each of our app pages in the App Store the list of everything we do with your data. So we were talking about my app Git Trends a minute ago. If you check out Git Trends, GITTRENDS on the iOS App Store, you'll see a little blurb on that page that here's what Git Trends does with your data. And I don't collect any PII. There's no data collection going on. But even things like every mobile app, or I shouldn't say every, just about every mobile app will do certain things to track your like crashes and errors, so that when the app does crash, we can find out about it, we can fix that bug and push out a new release. And so that's what you'll see if you go check out Git Trends. But if you really want to get nervous, check out an app like Facebook, like Instagram. You'll be scrolling through all the things they do with your data for a good couple seconds, whereas at least with Git Trends, you'll see it in 2 lines. And so,
have you seen?
Be wary.
You've seen Facebook and Instagram's ad push lately about how personalized ads are like really good for you, and it helps you find things you wouldn't otherwise know. So they're trying to show that, hey, like the end result is we push things to you that you want to know about. So it's all about like, this small business needs to know the right data so they can get it in front of the person who's going to do something with it. And sure, like I don't want to see ads that are useless for me, but I don't know that I want you taking all of my information so that I can see there's a drum kit on sale for me nearby. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And actually, Jens, it's a good question for you. So being in Denmark, being in the EU, you have had better privacy, at least regulations. What are your thoughts on all of this coming from the EU, where you're a little bit more protected than PJ and I are here in the US?
We're wide open here, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I mean, we have this overall legislation referred to as GDPR, which is, I totally get the idea behind this legislation, but it's just taken overhand. You know, every single website you visit, you have to accept not only cookies, you have to accept privacy policies, you have to accept, yada, yada, yada. And nobody reads this, right? But that's just one point. Another point is, let's say I'm doing a club. Let's say I'm doing a network club for Xamarin enthusiasts in the Billund area. If I start registering people's data like name, email, etc., so first of all, I have to notify them of their rights. I'm bound to, I think I have like 6 months. If I haven't touched those data in 6 months, I have to automatically delete them. There's so many rules, which means that, and obviously, God help me if I by accident share those email addresses with other club members. I mean, in theory, I will be, crucified, right? So there's good and bad to that legislation. Again, I mean, you don't have to be a genius to figure out what kind of data is being mined through apps and websites these days. I think it's good that there's some kind of legislation keeping, especially the big tech companies, in check. But on the other hand, it also has to be done intelligently, and I think the GDPR regulation, as it's implemented, it's more of a nuisance that it's than it is solving a problem, right? So yeah.
I get it. Yeah, I was literally on a website today. I forget what I was doing. I think I was booking a rental car. I don't own a car, so sometimes I need to book a rental. But yeah, it had the banner at the bottom, like you were talking about, Jens. It says, "Do you accept the cookies?" And I'm like, I don't. So I don't click the accept button. But does that really even do anything, or is that more of like a formality?
Yeah.
I feel like they've still put the cookie in my browser.
It's a legal requirement. It's a legal requirement.
Yeah, they just have to ask.
Yeah. So
whether you accept it or not, they're still doing what they want. They just have to ask.
If you explicitly say no, you don't accept the cookies, and they still let you continue, and they do give you cookies, actually, I think that particular company would be in trouble.
Now it's just cookies.
Yeah, it's just cookies.
Makes me hungry. Yeah. This is Cookie Monster getting into legislation.
But actually, this has also been an interesting element of my own fintech startup, because as I alluded to earlier, it's an investment tool for private investors, right? But and so one thing is I allow the users to store their investment portfolios, etc., and analyze them and do all kinds of stuff. And that's all fine and dandy. But if I were to provide a functionality where they can then save that portfolio into the cloud so that it's available on other devices, it just takes off. The regulation in terms of layers of encryption and two-factor authentication, yada yada yada. It's financial data, right?
Yeah,
it's personal financial data, right?
Yeah.
It just takes off. So yeah.
Personally, I get around that. I just put my bank account up on stream every once in a while. Like, hey guys, check it out. You can look up the routing number if you really want to.
Yeah, and sorry, real quick, JR in the comments is asking the name of your startup.
Yeah, so my startup, as I said, I haven't gone public yet, and there's more reasons to that. But one of them is the original name was already being used by another company. I found out later.
It's McDonald's.
Yeah, something like that. So right now I'm working with an ad agency. So first of all, they're doing a UX change of my app, because Brandon, you're welcome to show the screenshots I sent you.
Really?
So yeah, because it's like when you're a guy who's all wound up in models and screen real estate, as you are when you're working within capital markets. The most expensive real estate on any trading floor is screen real estate, because you just want to cram as much information in there as possible. But again, so this is sort of the MVP version, or the version that the raw version. But and you can see that there's quite a lot of information just in that one screen. And for me, hey, that's no problem. But maybe for a new, inexperienced investor, it's like, what is going on here? So right now I have a proper UX designer to redesign my front end and give it a more appealing look and
some polish.
But at the same time, we also doing kind of a branding session, trying to find a new name, where obviously the domain name is also available. It's just, I don't know whether that's actually important in these days, but anyways. So hey, yeah, if you're sitting out there and you have a great idea for a name for an app, shoot me a DM on Twitter or look me up on LinkedIn or whatever.
It can't be McDonald's. We tried that one.
It can't be McDonald's. True.
We tried it. They said no.
Yeah.
So
actually, speaking of which, so Jens, your Twitter handle is @suborbitals. So SUBORBITALS. And when we were chatting earlier, you mentioned that you're also into amateur rocketry. Is that where the Twitter handle comes from?
Actually, that Twitter account was used for communicating about. So I'm involved in a not-for-profit, crowd-funded, crowdsourced, not totally open source, but close to project to do a suborbital flight. Hence the name Suborbitals. And and they are called Copenhagen Suborbitals, by the way. So again, check it out. Just this Easter here, we've had serious testings of our new BPM5 engine with the new swivel injectors, etc., etc. So, but the aim of this project is to, on a shoestring budget, to build and launch a rocket with eventually an astronaut on board to do a suborbital flight mimicking that of Alan Shepard.
I want to clarify, this is different from the Lego stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure we weren't making Lego rockets. Okay.
Yeah. No, you gotta have healthy interests, right? So
that's right. That's amazing. So you guys said you just launched like a test rocket recently, like over Easter
we did.
Weekend?
This Sunday and this Monday we did 7 tests in total, static fires of the engine. We were testing different nozzle configurations, and we're testing a new injector design on the rocket engine. So, but go to CopenhagenSuborbitals.com. Check out. There's all the videos. There's all the we are telling the world about what's going on in our rocket shop. We are inviting people to come and join our project. It's volunteers. We've got 60 plus volunteers now, ranging from everything from students from various universities. Some of them are even doing their master thesis in a rocket shop. We've got people from all areas around mechanical engineering. But again, the project it's not only about that. We also have a media crew who they do all the live streaming. Make sure that we can also, when we are launching our rockets, we've done 6 or 7 launches so far, that we are able to stream back in HD quality directly on YouTube from a supersounding rocket. So we have people doing guidance systems, doing all the programming there. You have obviously we have the whole operations team because we do sea launches. We launch our rockets from sea. And recovery as well, or as we call them, the Department of Slowly Descending Objects.
Department of Slowly Descending.
It's a cool project. Check out the webpage again. And as I said, everything is crowdsourced, crowdfunded. So dig in. And obviously, we would love support for the project as well. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. But that's one of my dreams. One of my goals is before I die, I want to go to space. So I want to feel the weightlessness. I want to see the curvature of the Earth. And I guess thank you for doing this because I love that these programs exist.
But Brandon, we haven't actually selected the astronaut yet, so
get on that short list, Brandon.
I don't know if I want to go first. Maybe after a couple of tries and after we've proved it out. But yeah, I've told my wife because there's definitely bigger companies going after this, like Virgin Galactic's one that comes top of mind. That I told her if we get to the point where I'm 50, 60, like getting up there in terms of being physically able to do it. Where like if it still costs $200,000, like I'm cashing out the 401k. And
that's right.
I want to do this.
Bury me in space.
Yeah, it's
amazing. That's rad.
Yeah, and but I think actually, and this is again, there's also a little bit of sanity to what we're doing, and that is the fact that as technology evolves, like your standard iPhone has more computing power than the entire Apollo program had for doing all the guidance to the moon and back, right? And you have these systems that you can just order off Alibaba or eBay or whatever. That are actually, yes, they are not flight grade. They will not be FAA approved, right? but they are good enough for what we're doing. And if you are, and if you make sure that you keep a proper element of system redundancy, it's totally safe. So yeah, and this technology is available for us. It's not only the NASA guys who has access to this, right?
Yeah.
So you can actually build all the guidance systems, everything that's needed in order to be able to control this thing. You can build on a shoestring budget, right? The design approach that we have taken is also to say, you know what? If you look at it, how much time do we have? We have 3 minutes left. So, but it basically comes down to keeping things simple, right? And if there's no need to use some exotic material to reduce the weight mass of the rocket by 0.00001%, because at the end of the day, a rocket launch is a ballistic exercise, right? So you go up, you have an apogee, you go down. It's not like an airliner where you have to think about the fuel and service consumptions throughout the lifetime, right? So, and by employing this keep it simple, stupid design principle, I mean, you can more or less build your own rocket from stuff you can buy at the local hardware store.
You heard it here first, people. Head to Home Depot and make a rocket. Tell them when you're checking out what you got going on this weekend. Oh, I'm just building a rocket.
See, can you go to space real quick?
Yeah.
Jens, that's absolutely incredible. We only have 2 minutes left. I do want to say again, thanks so much for coming on the show. Your background's incredible, from teaching yourself how to code, to building rockets, to building robots and teaching children to build robots. You're fascinating life here.
Man.
But for folks who want to chat with you more, learn more about you, maybe they want to go to space and they want to be astronauts too, where can the folks at home find you?
Again, at Suborbitals, that's my Twitter handle. Look me up on LinkedIn, whatever. I'm happy to connect. And if there's a full stack Xamarin developer out there, including Azure, etc., with minimum 10 or 15 years of experience, and shoot me a DM and we'll figure something out. No, I'm kidding. I'm happy to be here, Brandon, and again, for myself, these series of programs, it's always nice to hear about people's experiences within tech and how they did things, because again, I think we all choose our own paths, but sometimes we can get some inspiration from each other, right?
That's right.
I know I'm inspired. Well, Jens, thanks so much for joining us today. PJ, thank you so much for filling in for Chloe.
Happy to help.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week, same time, same channel, and we'll see you then.
Have a good day, y'all.